Hello, hello, my love. Welcome back to Aroused for another episode. We are kicking it off with the second episode of the Boost Your Confidence series here on the podcast. And I am your host, Samantha Pop, life coach. And today's episode is all about the confidence to be sober, how my decision to be sober affected my self-confidence. So let's get into all the tea. Warning, the following presentation is intended for mature audiences. It includes stigma topics like sex, addictions, mental illness, adult dialogue, and strong language. Viewer discretion is advised. Today marks my 1-year sober anniversary, and the past 2 days have been more difficult than the past 6 months. My sexual assault in the early spring was the last major test for my sobriety. However, the past 2 days have really tested my confidence to be sober, and it has taken me for a whirlwind. Both of these situations are things that I have feared, but never did I think they would snowball one after another. First, my partner's dad and stepmom were very upset with me, and I instantly felt rejected, and it triggered all of my memories from my ex's parents rejecting me and making my life more difficult. Being rejected is something I have struggled with for a long time, and I felt hurt. This hurt manifested itself into thoughts like, you know what can take this pain away? Booze. And I don't want to feel this, and if I just have one drink, it can make me feel better. I can numb myself out. I bawled my eyes out for 2 hours that night, but I didn't drink. Not one drop of alcohol. I should have journaled right when I got home that night, as it would have been very therapeutic for me. But here we are. I'm talking about it now and in my journal, getting it all out so I don't hold bitterness within me. Even if his dad and stepmom decide to hold a grudge forever, it is their choice or not, but I can choose not to hold this against them. I can choose love even in the darkest cave, so I may always save myself. The next day is something I have been trying to prepare myself for, but never did I think it would happen so soon. Twister was running back to me from playing with the neighbor's dog, and immediately I knew something's not right. Twister is stumbling, losing his balance, and he's misstepping until he collapses and falls against the back deck 6x6 wooden post. He stops moving and gets stiff the moment he collapsed. My heart drops into my stomach, and I fear this is the event I hoped would never come. I screamed at the top of my lungs, "Twister!" while my eyes fill with tears, blurring my vision. My heart starts racing, and it feels like my heart is going to beat right out of my chest. I am a chicken running around with my head cut off. I'm in such a frenzy, frantically running back inside for my cell phone, telling myself, why don't you have your phone on you? You normally have your phone in your pocket. I sprint outside to meet Twister at his side, where he is now conscious and aware of the world around him. I lay next to him, bawling, "I love you so much." And I dial the only person I knew that could be by my side. She races over to take Twister and I to an emergency vet, while I run through a million worst-case scenarios in my head of what's going to happen with my dog. The uncertainty made me sick to my stomach and ultimately preparing myself for the very worst. We ran his blood work and the results showed absolutely nothing. It all came back normal. There is still so much uncertainty of why or what caused this episode, which keeps my anxiety on its toes. Keeping a close eye on his behavior, and if this happens again, there isn't much to do right now. The not knowing worries me and makes my anxiety run 1,000 miles a minute, but reminding myself that I cannot control it and having Twister back at home for another day is what keeps me going. Once again, doing my steps to stay sober in the midst of chaos has worked both times here in the past 2 days, but it can always be improved and adjusted, so I may reduce my risk of relapsing in the future. One day at a time. One more day. I can do this. I don't know where I'd be without my sobriety. And within the past year, I have learned so many lessons and grown so much as a person. Then, if I never quit drinking, I don't even know where I would be right now if I hadn't stopped drinking. I would be in a very bad place. Whether if you or someone that you know is thinking about joining the Sober Nation, as I have, it is so worth it. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Like I mentioned, in the last year alone with my sobriety, it has changed me in more ways than I could describe to you. I am so grateful to be sober and clean living right now. It really took my confidence to remind myself of why I chose to stay sober that kept me on the path that it did. I saw a couple quotes that I'm going to share with you here, and one is, getting sober meant I had to learn to love myself instead of wanting to escape myself and my past, which is 100% true. I was using drinking in my own situation in my life to escape myself, to escape my past, to not deal with things that were traumatic. Another quote I saw is, you fight for your sobriety every day. You do it to be the best parent, son, daughter, grandparent, employee, friend, and human you can be. Not to be perfect. Some will never understand, and that's okay. We do, and we're proud of you. That was a quote from Sober Motivation, and I love that one as well, because I do fight for my sobriety every day. In the past 2 days, like I mentioned earlier in this episode, the past 2 days have been more challenging than the past 6 months have for my sobriety, because it tested me in so many different ways. It's a daily struggle. And another quote that relates to this as well is, who says one day sober isn't a big deal? In active addiction, we think about using every minute of every day. One day sober is 1,440 times you've said no. Don't sell yourself short. That's another quote from Sober Motivation. And in both the past 2 days, it may or may not have been 1,440 times that I said no to myself, but I definitely thought about it a fucking lot, that I was like, you know what, maybe I could just have a drink. You know, I'm really stressed out, and making all these excuses that it's okay to drink, even though I know what drinking does to me. Right now, you may be thinking, okay, Sam, so you're sober from alcohol, but, you know, there's probably not a lot of celebrities that are sober or dealing with their own sobriety from other substances. And I actually found several different quotes from celebrities about their sobriety or sobriety in general. Naomi Campbell said, "It doesn't matter what walk of life, addiction and alcoholism doesn't discriminate." Nikki Sixx, who is sober for 20 plus years now, I believe, he said, "I'd rather be the guy that people don't think is cool than be the guy in a coffin." Samuel L. Jackson has been sober for 30 years. "So I was doing things the right way. It was just the one thing that was in the way, my addiction. And once that was out of the way, it was boom, the door blew wide open." Robert Downey Jr., sober since 2003. "I guess sometimes I want to have a drink with dinner, but then I remember that I have plans for Christmas." Jada Pinkett Smith, sober for 20 plus years. "I found myself drinking 2 bottles of wine on the couch, and I said, Jada, I think we've got a problem here. I had problems with alcohol, and I really had to get in contact with the pain, whatever that is, and then I had to get some other tools in how to deal with the pain. From that day on, I went cold turkey." Eminem, who's 12 years sober. "I couldn't believe that anyone could be naturally happy without being on something. So I would say to anybody, it does get better." Danny Trejo, who's been sober for 51 years. "When I think about drugs, I think about having to shower with 50 men in prison. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want someone saying, hey, bend over and spread them. That's what drugs means to me." Eva Mendes, sober since 2008. "I'm so proud of people that have the determination and fearlessness to actually go and face their demons and get better. This is a life or death situation." For me, deciding to get sober was a huge decision based on confidence. And it took a lot of courage for me to admit that I was self-medicating with alcohol, that I was using it to numb the pain, to try and forget past memories, and push down a lot of trauma that I never wanted to think about again. My self-confidence in my decision to be sober continues to be challenged every single day, especially when I'm out with friends and someone offers me something to drink, or I'm at a restaurant and the waitress or waiter asks me, "Would you like something to drink?" And it tests me because I could easily say, yes, I would like a gin Caesar with Bombay. And I still remember my favorite drink that I would like to have with dinner. I could easily say that, but it takes a lot of self-confidence and commitment to yourself, to your sobriety, to continue to say no, even when people that are around you may not know that you're sober, or someone at a restaurant that's serving you, they're not going to know that you're sober, and they might think that it's not a big deal to ask someone if they want to have a drink. And if that triggers you, it is something to work through. That's something that I've had to work through, as well as being able to be around people that are drinking. So if I go to a pub with some friends, they're all having a beer and I'm having a lemon water, and me being okay with that. Being comfortable around alcohol was something that was important for me. And it took a lot of confidence and confidence building for me to be able to do that today. Sobriety hasn't been an easy road or journey for me, but I can tell you that it is one of my decisions that I feel still very confident to this day that it was one of the best decisions for me to make, is to get sober, to not drink anymore, work on myself so I can continue to be the real me and not drink alcohol. Be the better me that doesn't drink alcohol. If you loved today's episode, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, or you can take a screenshot of this episode, tag me on social media at The Soulful Body Co. on Facebook, Instagram, or if you find me on Facebook at The Soulful Body Co., you can leave a 5-star rating and review right on the Facebook page and let me know what you loved about today's episode. I love you so much, and I will see you next time for episode 3 of the Boost Your Confidence series episode.